I froze mid-step, staring at my boss's screen, heart hammering. "Jane, we've decided it's time for you to leave," Mr. Hawthorne said without looking up. My chest tightened. Just yesterday I'd stayed late, saved the client deal that no one else could. "What? Why?" I whispered, voice shaking. Around me the office buzzed, colleagues pretending not to notice, faces smiling like my pain was a punchline. I felt exposed, humiliated. Karen, my so-called friend, leaned over, smirking. "Guess all that hard work didn't matter." I wanted to scream, but words caught in my throat. They were erasing me, my effort, my place here, and smiling while doing it. My mind raced. How could they betray me like this? My fingers shook as I gathered my things. Every stapler, notebook, photo from my desk felt heavier than ever. The elevator ride down was a blur. I felt invisible, like a ghost leaving a home that didn't deserve me. But inside, a spark ignited. If they thought I'd vanish quietly, they had another thing coming. My eyes narrowed. "You're about to regret this," I whispered under my breath, the first ember of a plan flickering to life. I spent the next few days like a shadow, walking past their desks, listening, noting. Karen bragged about her victory over me. Hawthorne barely made eye contact, but his tone dripped with relief every time my name came up. It was petty, but I recorded everything. Emails, conversations, every slight. I'd never forget how small they made me feel, how easily they dismissed me. I realized something. They thrived on control, on the illusion of power. And that was exactly the lever I needed. I watched the office dynamics, who whispered to whom, whose promotions hinged on fake smiles and sly manipulations. My fury twisted into a calm focus. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted to dismantle the delicate web of arrogance they built on my back. My evenings became planning sessions, scribbling notes at home, connecting the dots, imagining how every move I made could tip their world. It felt intoxicating, this sense of power returning to me. I wasn't just going to disappear. I was going to leave scars, invisible but deep. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Are you ready to play their game?" My pulse spiked. Someone was watching. Or was it me, seeing everything? Either way, the game had begun. It started small. I leaked subtle hints about internal discrepancies in accounting, enough to make the finance team nervous. I watched from afar as eyebrows furrowed, panic spreading like wildfire. Karen noticed, panic flickering in her eyes, though she tried to laugh it off. "Must be nothing," she muttered. But the emails I'd sent anonymously, the tiny errors I pointed out, were seeding doubt. Hawthorne's confident facade cracked slightly each day, just enough for me to savor the taste. I kept my demeanor calm, polite even. No one suspected I was behind it. I smiled at my own reflection in the office glass. Invisible, untouchable. The thrill of being the unseen puppet master thrilled me. By the end of the week, meetings stretched longer, arguments flared over reports that seemed accurate but weren't. And through it all, I sat quietly, coffee in hand, pretending to be the same Jane they had discarded. Every smirk they shared, every whisper about me, fuel for the fire. I wasn't just planning a comeback, I was planning a storm. And the first raindrops had already fallen. One evening, I stayed late, pretending to tie up work that didn't exist. My eyes scanned the server logs, the shared drives, anything that gave me leverage. Then I stumbled on it, a hidden folder, emails detailing bonuses being rerouted, promotions stolen from other employees, and worse, evidence of Karen covering up a client blunder I had warned about weeks ago. My stomach churned. They weren't just petty, they were corrupt. I downloaded every file to a secure drive. My hands shook, not from fear but anticipation. I realized revenge alone wouldn't satisfy me anymore. justice would taste sweeter. I whispered into the empty office. You built your empire on lies, and now I hold the blueprint? Every night after, I plotted how to expose, how to manipulate, how to make them squirm without a hint that I was behind it. The adrenaline was addictive. I imagined the chaos this knowledge would cause, the careful unraveling of their perfect facade. They thought they were untouchable. I knew differently. I was no longer a victim. I was the storm they never saw coming. And as I shut down my computer, my reflection in the dark screen grinned back. I was ready. I started planting whispers carefully, nudging colleagues with subtle questions. Did anyone see the latest expense report? Seems off. I made the uncertainty spread like a virus. Karen's hands twitched. Her eyes darted whenever I passed. The office morale, once a comfortable hum, turned jittery, anxious. My plan was meticulous. No one could trace it to me. I stayed invisible, the calm eye of the brewing storm. But then something unexpected happened. Marcus, the quiet intern, cornered me one morning. Jane, are you behind this? His voice shook. I simply smiled, letting the silence speak. He nodded, uncertain whether to warn me or join me. The idea thrilled me. Control was intoxicating. I could pull strings without touching them, make them doubt, falter, unravel. By the week's end, even Hawthorne was jittery, second-guessing numbers, questioning reports he'd once trusted. Karen's smirk began to falter, and I felt the satisfaction course through me. This was more than revenge. It was the art of disappearance while leaving chaos in your wake. And just when I thought I had them cornered, an anonymous message popped up on my phone. They're catching on. Be careful. My pulse raced. Someone else knew I was moving pieces on the board. Or had they? I began receiving small tips anonymously. Who was loyal? Who was scared? Who might betray? At first, I feared it was another trap. But the advice was precise, eerily helpful, allowing me to anticipate office moves before they happened. My paranoia mixed with excitement. Every action I took now had leverage from unknown sources. I followed the trail of emails, office memos, and whispered secrets, slowly tightening the grip around Karen and Hawthorne. One day, I discovered that Karen was secretly diverting funds into personal accounts, a bigger scandal than I imagined. My mind raced. Expose it now or wait for maximum damage. I felt my pulse in my throat. I realized the stakes were higher than I thought. If I misstepped, my disappearance wouldn't matter. I'd be exposed, vulnerable. Yet a thrill ran through me. The power to dismantle the people who had tried to erase me was intoxicating. Patience, I muttered, pacing my apartment later that night. Every empire has cracks, and tonight I start chiseling. I glanced at my phone again. The unknown ally hadn't sent a message today, but I didn't worry. I had enough now to start a real storm. It was during a team meeting that the first visible crack appeared. Hawthorne misquoted numbers, Karen stammered over client updates, and colleagues exchanged nervous glances. I sat back, feigning ignorance, heart hammering. The tension in the room was tangible, each misstep amplified by subtle reminders I'd planted anonymously. A minor blunder, a forgotten invoice, escalated into an argument that lasted hours. I watched as alliances shifted, whispers and accusations flying like sparks from a fire. Marcus, the intern, seemed torn between loyalty and fear, and I realized I had to act carefully. Too much too soon, and the trail would lead back to me. But seeing them falter, seeing the confidence crumble, I felt alive. The office had been my battlefield, and for the first time I felt like the general. After the meeting, I returned to my cubicle, empty, just like I liked it, and allowed myself a small smile. They were panicking, unraveling in ways they didn't understand. And I hadn't even struck the core yet. Hawthorne made a critical error that I had quietly nudged him toward. A major client's payment was delayed, and panic spread through the office like wildfire. Karen tried to cover it, but her lies were easily exposed, with documents I'd left strategically in shared folders. Watching them scramble felt surreal. I whispered to myself, this is only the beginning. My careful orchestration had turned their confidence into chaos. Yet the thrill was mixed with danger. If anyone suspected me, it could backfire catastrophically. That night, I sat in my car outside the office, replaying every interaction, every email, every step I'd taken. I had to stay invisible. Every move had to be precise, measured, perfect. The storm was building, but the real hurricane, the ultimate revelation, was still months away. My pulse quickened. The first real mistakes they made under pressure were exhilarating. This wasn't just revenge. It was a lesson in control, and I was teaching it masterfully. Karen cornered me in the break room, fake smile plastered on her face. Jane, can we talk? Her voice was sharp, strained. My stomach twisted, but I nodded politely. She tried to charm, plead, even subtly threaten. I listened quietly, eyes steady, letting her unravel in her own panic. The more she talked, the more I realized her desperation was a weapon I could use. I said nothing of substance, letting her ramble, documenting every word on my phone. Marcus hovered nearby, eyes wide. Karen didn't notice him. She was unraveling in real time, her arrogance replaced by fear. By the end of the conversation, she stormed off, muttering under her breath. I smiled quietly, savoring the control. They thought they could manipulate me, dismiss me, erase me. But now I held the narrative. I whispered to myself, patience, Jane. They're running out of options. And in that moment, I understood. The more they tried to regain control, the deeper they'd fall into the trap I'd set. I sent an anonymous tip to HR about irregularities in expense reports and client dealings, carefully framing it so it couldn't be traced back to me. The office erupted in quiet hysteria. Karen accused Hawthorne of negligence. Hawthorne deflected, and everyone was caught in the tension I had cultivated. I observed from afar, pretending to work while the storm swirled around me. Every whisper, every glance, every whispered accusation played into my plan. My pulse raced, a mix of fear and exhilaration. I realized my disappearance wasn't just physical, it was strategic. I could control the chaos without stepping into the fray directly. That night, alone in my apartment, I smiled at the screen of my laptop, reviewing the documents I'd leaked. They were floundering, blinded by their own misdeeds, and soon I'd make my final move. The office I'd loved, the colleagues who'd betrayed me, the people who had wanted me gone, they would all feel the ripple of my absence, and I would have taken their peace with me. Marcus, the intern, pulled me aside one morning, eyes wide and jittery. Jane, I know what you're doing. I want to help. My heart skipped. Could I trust him? I studied his face, searching for lies. His honesty seemed raw, almost desperate. I nodded slowly. You need to be careful, I whispered, voice low. One wrong step and everything collapses. He agreed, trembling, promising to act subtly, relay information, and watch their reactions. I realized that Marcus could be a crucial ally. His position allowed him access to areas I couldn't reach, emails, conversations, the smallest mistakes. Together, quietly, we plotted the next stage. I felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread. If anyone found out, the consequences could be catastrophic, but the thrill of building an unseen network, of watching them falter without ever exposing myself, was intoxicating. That night, I reviewed all we knew, all their weaknesses, and began sketching the final plan. I whispered into the dark room, soon they'll regret every ounce of arrogance. The stakes were higher, the pressure immense, but the endgame, the sweet taste of control and justice, was almost within reach. By midweek, the tension exploded. HR called emergency meetings, questioning everyone about the anomalies I had exposed. Karen's lies fell apart. Hawthorne stuttered under scrutiny, and whispers of potential termination floated in the air. Marcus acted perfectly, supplying minor but critical confirmations to my plans, keeping the office off balance. I watched quietly from my cubicle, heart racing, pretending to work. The office I'd once called home now felt like a stage of chaos I had authored. My chest swelled with satisfaction, tempered by nerves. One wrong glance, one careless gesture, and the entire web could unravel, yet the thrill of power of invisibility was intoxicating. I realized this wasn't just revenge, it was transformation. I'd become someone else entirely, someone untouchable, unseen, yet controlling the narrative with perfect precision. That evening, I sat in my apartment, reviewing every step. The storm I had built was now fully visible. And soon the crescendo, the moment they realized I was gone entirely, would arrive. Karen's desperation reached new heights. She started sending frantic messages to Hawthorne, attempting damage control, trying to redirect blame. I smiled quietly as I read her texts on my phone, Marcus whispering confirmations from his desk. Her panic was exquisite. Her perfect image shattered. I remembered the first day they tried to push me out, smiling while erasing my work. Now I watched the tables turn. Karen tried subtle sabotage, but every move she made only deepened her exposure. Her colleagues avoided her, uncertain whom to trust. Even Hawthorne's confidence faltered, leaving him easy prey to my subtle manipulations. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the taste of control. My own pulse quickened with exhilaration. This was more than revenge, it was poetic justice, a lesson in humility and consequence. And as I left the office that day, I felt a sense of freedom. I was no longer the victim. I was the storm, the invisible force dismantling their empire piece by piece. The next day, anonymous emails appeared on the company's internal network, exposing more inconsistencies, forged signatures, and misappropriated funds. Panic erupted. Karen frantically tried to trace them, but each lead was a dead end. Hawthorne's credibility started crumbling. Colleagues whispered behind closed doors. I sat back, pretending to be oblivious, savoring the chaos I had orchestrated. Marcus winked subtly across the office. His help was invaluable. I realized then how satisfying it was to witness their unraveling without ever confronting them directly. The office that once bullied me, ignored me, tried to erase me, they were now puppets in my hands. And the best part? They had no idea who was pulling the strings. That night, alone in my apartment, I smiled. The final stage of my plan was near. I whispered to myself, soon the silence will be mine. For a brief moment, the office seemed frozen, holding its breath. Karen paced. Hawthorne muttered under his breath. Employees glanced nervously at one another. The chaos had reached a peak, but I knew it was temporary. A calm before the ultimate storm. I reviewed all my plans, every document, every step Marcus and I had taken. My disappearance was imminent, the culmination of months of careful orchestration. I felt a mix of fear, thrill, and anticipation. I whispered into the dark apartment. Soon they'll realize everything they lost. The final moves were coming. One wrong misstep could expose me, but the risk only sharpened my focus. Outside, the city lights blinked innocently, unaware of the quiet hurricane I was about to unleash. I packed my laptop, backups, everything I might need. The stage was set, and soon the office that had wanted me gone would feel the absence I created, and the peace I took with me.